Let's open session. Let's start with the roll call. Co-President Wong.
Present.
Clerk Venegas.
Present.
Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Present.
And I too am present. Let's go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Does anybody have a flag that they can share their screen?
I have one. Just a moment, please.
All right. Hey, there we go. Co-President Wong, will you please lead us in the pledge?
Okay. Ready? Begin.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to
the republic
for
which it stands,
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move down to public comments. Were there any public comments that you received, Co-President Wong?
I did not receive anything. I have not received anything.
Dr. Hildreth, did you receive any?
No, I did not receive any public comments.
Yorgos or Mario, did you receive any?
None on my end.
All right.
No public comments on mine
either. Okay. Do we have any board and superintendent comments? Do you want to go, Dr. Hildreth? Do you have any comments?
I just want to say welcome to all of the candidates, and we appreciate you going through this process with us this evening.
Outstanding. Hang on, I'm getting a text message saying somebody wanted to make a public comment. Hang on. Okay.
Was there a specific person that you wanted us to unmute who may be in the attendee
Yeah,
list?
I'm looking to see them, and I don't know if I see them.
Co-President Pizzati, if it's helpful, I'm happy to make a call out to all attendees right now. For anyone that's joining us on the webinar, you do have a series of controls at the bottom of your screen. The one thing that you can do is raise your virtual hand by using the raise hand feature. The other option is to use the Q&A feature. In there, you would put the item that you would like to speak on. In this case, it's the one item, the vacancy, and your full name, and we can turn on your microphone at that point. If you're joining us by a mobile device, all you have to do is press *9 on your touchpad, and that'll raise a virtual hand. And at that point, we can acknowledge that you have a request. Thank you.
Okay, I received a text message from Colin Malik. Colin, are you prepared to, there you go. Okay, see if I can allow you to talk. Says promote to panelist.
So sometimes that happens when an individual might have an older version of the software. So I'm happy to promote him to a panelist just for the moment.
Okay.
And then at least that'll give him the microphone.
There you go.
And there he is.
Okay, go ahead, Colin.
Hey, good evening, board. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry for the confusion on that. I'm using the Chromebook and an old Zoom through the portal, so I'm doing the best I can here with that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
I just have one public comment there, President or Co-President Pizzati. I felt it necessary to make board comments tonight with a little bit of concern and disappointment over last night. West Sacramento experienced a power outage, internet shortage, as well as a system-wide failure for YouTube during a special board meeting. As unfortunate as this is, it comes off in the community looking somewhat exclusionary, and I know that would never be the board's purposeful intent, but sometimes the best intentions sometimes have problems and holes within them. It would be understood and recognized because of the power outages and things of that nature that maybe there weren't as many Nevertheless, adding agenda items is your prerogative. However, such an addition to an agenda item looks a little sketchy in such a limited fashion with limited access to democracy and the democratic process. Even if there's only 5 people in on the meeting, we would like and would want the democratic process to be as fair and open as possible. I'd like to point out a little concern. Why not wait possibly for the next board meeting with an added agenda when the public can actually hear and enjoy those comments? Again, I know a lot of people out there use the YouTube to watch live, maybe not make comments, but they would like to be involved in the political process. Second to last, I would emphasize and encourage the board to follow the science and not the governor. For over a year since we've been in COVID, we've had several opportunities for national leadership as well as regional and state leadership. This has fallen short, and it's fallen on the shoulders of not only the board, but the superintendents. Please, in this time, now is the time for West Sacramento and WUSD to lead from the front. In my opinion, the governor has clearly tried to put us back in the classroom, back on the front burner because of the intense pressure he might be facing either from a recall or from public outcry over return to schools. I emphasize and would ask that the board please follow the science, not necessarily the governor. Furthermore, keep in mind that inoculated teachers and children can still spread COVID-19. They can be carriers despite having the inoculations and vaccinations, which makes populations within their households still potentially victims of this horrific disease that is spreading through our community still. Finally, I would like to emphasize how great our kids are doing. They are learning things, and we hear so much and get frustrated at learning loss. That we would emphasize to the board that our students are resilient, they are wonderful, they are losing and missing curriculum, that is understood, but they are learning and adapting and doing great things in so many other ways. So I'd like the board to remember that as we prepare and try to have dialogue on a possible return to school. With that, good luck, board. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Colin. So we'll go to, oh, stop. Sorry. We'll go to board comments. Does anybody have any board comments? Since I know we made ours last night, I just thought I'd offer it up to anybody who had a comment. I'll go to Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Thank you. Yes, I'm grateful for this process that we have. And when we knew we had a vacancy open, we went right to our bylaws and pulled from those our plan to move forward, working with our legal team as well. It is unfortunate. I know many have power out this evening, including our district office, and we are thinking about them and worried about the cold weather and everything happening. We are under a time crunch legally to make that clear in terms of our board meeting happening with everyone here tonight. And this is recorded and will be posted just to make sure everyone sees that. And I want to thank the applicants so much before we even get started and for putting yourself out there. This is an intense interview type process. And we are so fortunate to have you as members of the community, as members of the Washington Unified School District. And thank you so much for applying. And it is an honor to be with you this evening. And I know that however tonight goes, that we are going to continue to have very strong relationships with everybody who has applied and find ways to continue to get all of your voices heard and helping make an impact in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Venegas, do you have any board comments?
Yes. I want to begin by just demonstrating gratitude on this, I call it Thankful Thursday, to just have the opportunity to still find a window, still find time, still find the energy and the really the mental capacity through everything that we're going through to still look for light, still look for individuals that are looking to serve. So thank you all applicants for stepping up and stepping in. I do want to share that regardless of position, even though there is one seat, there isn't one voice, and I encourage every single one of you who is stepping up to continue that energy, continue that passion, that purpose, regardless of the outcome. be a neighbor, be a participant of the community, and serve in the best way that you possibly can. So I wish you all the best. I do want to give a special thank you to Trustee Kirby Gonzalez for leading this committee and really, head of spearing the idea of putting the process together and this as streamlined as possible, along with the rest of the board who has been really open-minded and under the circumstances, our superintendent, Dr. Hildreth, has really just has stepped up and leading the way. So I encourage you all to come in with that open heart, that open mind, and regardless of this outcome, our community is still at need. There's many places and many areas of service. So I hope to continue to see you all through this journey. Those are my comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Venegas. Co-President Wong.
Hi, greetings. It's great to actually see all your faces. I think I have the privilege of actually having spoken to every single one of you and really excited about where this will end. I can say without a doubt, all of you offer something different to the board. And I'm so grateful that you all have had the courage, quite frankly, to step up and sit and to be appointed. I myself haven't been in your position where colleagues are interviewing me. I think the only person who has is Co-President Pizzotti. And so that's a big deal to especially be recorded live on Zoom for everybody to see as you're going through an interview process. So thank you for your courage, which means also translates, thank you for your commitment to this community. It's a big deal. And I definitely, as I look at all your faces, I know what each one of you has contributed to our community and look forward to continuing however it lands, your continued commitment to us. And so this is not the end, as others have said before me. So really excited about tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Co-President Wong. And I would just like to, piggyback on what everybody else has said so far. And that is, as a board member, I'm grateful that we have so many people that are willing to step up and represent Trustee Area 1 and are willing to put themselves out there. This is a very big commitment. It's a time commitment as well as it is a lot of effort and energy. And I really just want to say thank you for being willing to take this on. As Clerk Venegas said, no matter what happens tonight and who gets selected, there's still other ways to serve, and there's other ways to serve your community. And, not only that, there's other things to serve in the district and committees to sit on and so forth. So having said that, please, we encourage you, no matter who gets picked, the rest of you, we encourage you to continue to advocate, to continue to serve, and to continue to be a major part of the students in the district's lives by giving your time. And I just want to say we're so appreciative of you stepping up. So thank you. And then with that, we'll move down to the action item, which is the interview appointment process for Board of Trustees Vacancy Area 1.
Okay, great. So tonight, Co-President Pizzotti and I have decided to share facilitation of the process. And at this time, we are going to actually go through how we will go through this. And we pulled names earlier. I know many of you were already on, so I'm going to repeat kind of the order and sequencing of interviews of this panel. So we have the first name that was pulled out of, I think, I was going to say the hat, but it was a manila envelope. So the manila envelope was Matthew Wilkins. The second person was Miss Lucia Lopez. The third person was Miss Christy Barnes. The fourth person was Mrs. Karen Floriano. If it's okay with the board, it's now 5:46. And since there hasn't been a response, I'm going to take that name off the list and bump up Mr. Jose Garcia into that fourth spot, if that is okay with my colleagues. Okay. Now is the time we will discuss how it's going to go. And if possible, I don't know if I can ask this, so I'm going to look to Marie, is wondering whether or not all candidates can actually eventually turn on their videos so that as we go through this process. Marie, yes, no?
So yes, I mean, that would be the best suggestion, would be that when you, during the interview process, that all candidates are on camera.
Perfect. Thank you. So that's the, when we begin questioning, it's going to be a panel format with the four of you, and we will start through, we have a series of questions. At this point, we actually have not yet settled on the specifics. We have seen seven questions, again, up for discussion. If any of the board members want to amend any of those questions, that now is the time to do so. But each board member will then, we're about to discuss, ask each of these series of questions. And then, for example, Mr. Wilkins will be first on the first question. Ms. Lopez will be the first on the second question, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? And we'll help, Co-President Pizzotti and I will help shepherd that along to make sure we are following the same sequence. And then we will restart. Does that make sense? If not, we'll do our best to facilitate this. So in the Zoom environment. Any questions about that or clarifications? So there are about 7 questions, which are inclusive of an opening and closing statement. No. Okay, great. So after we go through the question and answer, the committee has decided that we will go through a ranking order. And so again, we will have to discuss this on camera. Ms. Nakamura, do the candidates have to stay as we are discussing? Out of curiosity? Rank order?
The candidates, there's no requirement for them to stay. However, they may say this is an open session board meeting, so both the public and all of the candidates are more than welcome to stay during that discussion.
Yeah. But you don't need to be on camera at that point when we're discussing our ranked choice order. So, so as we were discussing our ranked choice order, my understanding is that we will go through our top 3 candidates, and I am going through the notes. And so we have does everybody have a ranked choice sheet? All the board members have a ranked choice sheet. We'll rank people accordingly. 1 being your number 1 choice, 2 being your second choice, 3rd, et cetera, et cetera. So we will rank that accordingly. And so, for example, number 1 will get a full 4 points, 2 will get 3 points, so on and so forth. Because we have now only 4 candidates versus 5, do we still want to do top 3, or would we prefer top 2? This is a board discussion.
Co-President Wong, I would recommend that we do the top 3. And another option, just to throw it out there right now for board discussion, was to first do that, maybe an informal kind of straw poll if we wanted to do that way as well. And you could do top 2 and then see where that goes and if it's needed for ranking. But if we are doing the ranking, given that there are 4 people, my recommendation would be to move that up.
Okay.
To have fewer.
So we will. So for clarification, is only picking your top 3 and going from there, and then figuring that out. Is that my understanding? What is? And I haven't gone through this process, so look to your experience on what that actually means. Trustee
And our bylaws do allow for flexibility. It's not binding, so no vote or ranking is binding. It's still open for discussion, and we can still do, call for nominations. In terms of, we had recommended, the subcommittee had recommended when there were 5 candidates doing the top 3. So it might be reasonable to do the top 2 if you want to do the ranking.
Okay.
I'll defer to everyone else.
Are any thoughts on, now that we have 4 candidates, top 2 or top 3 for discussion?
So when I went through this process, there was 9 candidates, and they ranked the top 3 with 9 candidates. So with only 4 candidates, I think top 2 would be reasonable. That's just kind of my leaning. I'm really open though. If others would rather rank the 4 in totality, then that's fine too.
Okay.
But I think top 2 would be, I think, fair, considering there's a smaller field.
Okay. I lean towards top 2 because of a smaller field, but Clerk Venegas, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yes, I'm thinking top 2 as well, just because of the fact that the number is 4. But I did want to specify when we ask the questions, there is a time limit, correct? There's a
Yes. Yes. Thank you for pointing that. So each question has a 3-minute time limit, and then between Co-President Pizzati and I will keep time on one, whoever is facilitating that question. So
now my other question is, so after we discuss top 2 and we all openly share our thoughts, do candidates that were not in the top 2, do we take a moment to have a conversation and dismiss any candidates from that conversation? Do they all stay on? Does everybody stay on? Just for their respect.
Oh yeah. No, that was my question to Ms. Nakamura. And so they are, because it's an open meeting, they are welcome to stay on. They don't have to have their cameras on. So they're welcome to stay. Unless your thought, Clerk Venegas, is that we might have follow-up questions, but we have to agree to those follow-up questions now. Right. And I don't, so if that's what you're thinking, that's a discussion for right now. And I'm not sure if that's something that might make sense.
I was thinking more of a statement, as in, it's clear that we're moving away from or moving in a direction. The train is passing by because I live in.
You live right there? Yes, we know.
That's my area too. That's how you guys know I live in. So as that passes by, my whole question was.
We can still hear. Clerk Venegas, keep on talking. We can still hear you. It's fine. It's totally fine. So yes, we can, again, candidates are welcome to stay regardless. I don't know if it makes sense for them to come back and ask us to ask more questions of them. But if that is something that you are thinking about, we need to talk about that now. Top 2, then we need to kind of bring back the top 2 and do additional follow-up. That's up for discussion.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe as co-presidents, we do a clear, you're saying thank you for your application. We're moving, not necessarily asking more questions, but more so making it clear.
Yeah. We can make it clear. But again, I think this is part of the discussion of process, right? So that wasn't a part of the original process, but you put it on the table, and I don't know what other folks are thinking, like the thoughts around that. Trustee Kirby. Yeah,
sure. And I should say to the public, the reason we're having this conversation now is because we cannot do it with the Brown Act beforehand. So 2 of us could speak, but it takes all of us to make these decisions now as we follow our bylaws. My recommendation would be, because again, it's non-binding, the vote that we take, and it is not until you get to a nomination. So I don't know if we need to dismiss or make anything clear at that point. But I do think it will be important to make closing comments at the end of the piece to congratulate and to, of course, thank and honor all of the people who are here.
Okay. So maybe ask a question for also Marie, like if we decide for after top 2, we want to have further questions, do we need to decide on that now? Or can we, if we rank top 2 and then say we have a few more questions we'd like to ask both candidates?
You could do that later on in the meeting if that's what you decided to do, so long as it's done in open session. The law does not govern how this process works, so long as it's an open and public process.
That's helpful. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for that clarification. So Clerk Venegas, that is reserved, that we can dismiss 2 candidates, and then if there are other questions, we are open to that. So with that said, we do have, again, 7 standard questions that were sent to us, both in the Google file as well as resent via email. I don't know, because legally we couldn't talk about them before. We have an opportunity to talk about them now. Are there any modifications at this point to the 7 questions, which are inclusive of an opening and a closing, that we want to modify? And I'm going to speak to, there was a note from our attorney to look at question number 6 specifically.
Okay, hang on.
And I think that we had
And-
generally said, yes, we wanted it, but that was kind of cryptic. So I just think we just need to be very clear.
And it is different in the Google Doc versus I just want to make that clear. It was updated, that question, to reflect what we thought board discussion was. I want to make sure you are looking at the updated. It begins in light of COVID-19.
I know you were specifically interested generally about that, Co-President Pizzotti. Does that question, is it phrased the way that?
Honestly, I like the way it's phrased. However, I wanted to have something a little more specific,
Okay.
Dialing it into COVID-related terms.
Okay. Did you want to suggest some questions or the modification to that question?
I was actually thinking about potentially, well, you know what, we could do it here. Yeah.
We have to do it here. We have
well,
to do it
I was
here.
thinking about,
There's no way we have to do it here.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about potentially adding it into a question of the top two. So, but now I'm thinking, you know what, maybe it's better to do it here. Hang on, let me read this carefully and find out where I would add COVID.
So, yeah, if you open up the Google Doc, and it's specifically question number 6, or you know what, you all know you're going to be asked this question, so I'll just read it. And so in light of COVID-19 and returning to school, how would you balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs when providing staff direction? Is that sufficient? Okay. All right. And since we're asking the same question, it's the one that, and just so on process for the candidates and the public, we will actually post these questions up on a Google slide, so for all to see. Correct, Dr. Hildreth? Okay, I think sometimes it's, well, I guess I can move over and see everybody as they're in a panel interview as a question is posed, but okay, great. And so the other thing is, we also decided that each board member will ask a different question. So I don't know if there is a preference for anybody, for the board to, would you like us to assign, or is anybody really want to ask any of the specific questions?
Okay. Raise your hand now.
Okay, so why don't Co-President Pizzotti and I, Co-President Pizzotti, would you like to do the opening and then the closing statement? I mean, those are not really questions, but we have we have 4 other questions in between. So why don't you do number 2, right? Trustee Curb Gonzalez, number 3. Clerk Venegas, you do number 4. Oh, there's 5. I'll do number 5. And then we'll go back to Co-President Pizzotti, you do number 6. Right?
And then 7.
7, yeah, and 7 will just be, it's the closings, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so whoever facilitates. So are we clear? Do we need other clarification on process from the board? And we should add anything, again, because we're doing this all in open session, we can add questions as long as they're consistent and everybody's asked the same question. Yeah? Okay, now are we ready?
I believe so.
The first question that we have on deck, Dr. Hildreth, if you don't mind putting up on the Google. Oh yes, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Sorry, Coach Trustee Wong. I just want to make it clear, since we said 3 minutes, that the closing as listed here is 1 minute. If we want to adjust that, that's fine. I just don't want us to get to that and not realize it.
Oh, yeah, I'm with one less candidate. I'm okay with a closing statement of 3 minutes. But if or if the candidates would prefer a 1 minute, that's all, I'm done. Mic drop, that's fine too. So, all right, I will wait for Co-President Pizzotti to come back before we begin. And again, everybody knows their sequence. If not, I will help facilitate this first round as we go through, and then we'll go from there.
You ready for the slide deck?
I am ready for the slide deck.
Okay, Mario.
Perfect. I will share the slide deck now. The first question will appear After the first question is read, I did list the sequence and order the following slide, so that way the candidates know when it'll be their turn.
Okay, perfect. So the first question, thank you again, candidates, for being here in this format. The first question is just an opening. Just provide a brief introduction and why you actually want to be a board member for the Washington Unified School District. So first is Matthew Wilkins.
Thank you, Co-President Pizzotti, Co-President Wong, Clerk Venegas, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez, Superintendent Dr. Hildreth, members of the West Sacramento community, and guests. My name is Matt Wilkins. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my qualifications with you this evening for the Area 1 trustee vacancy. To start, my inspiration to contribute to my community and serve the interests of the public was largely instilled in me by my family. In continuing this tradition, I have served in a number of volunteer and public service positions. When the Area 1 trustee position became vacant, my former colleagues and current Washington Unified teachers reached out to me and encouraged me to serve as a board member. Having made my home in West Sacramento for the past 11 years, and as a former employee who began a professional career as an educator for the Washington Unified School District, I recognize the important role of the Board of Education. As a trustee, I hope to inspire my children, continue to serve West Sacramento, and increase my involvement with the district. I have long recognized that every child should have the opportunity and necessary supports to reach their full potential. Public education is the foundation of American democracy, and the right to learn is an essential component of realizing the American dream. This belief is what inspired me to hold a professional career in the field of education. For nearly 10 years as an educator in the Washington Unified School District, along with my current position at the California Department of Education, I believe I am uniquely qualified to contribute to the Board of Education in collaboration with Dr. Hildreth to provide leadership in establishing and communicating district policies and goals, as well as prioritizing and determining funding decisions in an effort to deliver excellence and equity in education for the community of West Sacramento. As the parent of a student placed in a special day class at Elkhorn Village, a Yolo County foster parent, and in my professional experiences, including those of the California Department of Education in the Special Education Division, I am confident I will be able to actively contribute to the work of the school board as it strives to ensure equitable educational outcomes for all student groups in the district. Most importantly, I am committed to listening to the views of the public and specifically my neighbors in trustee area number 1, in an effort to hear unique perspectives and fully understand the challenges we face in governing our schools during this difficult time. There is no question that many underserved students were already struggling and at a disadvantage when schools within the district made the shift to virtual learning last year. I recognize students, including my own children, have been affected by the prolonged public health crisis, which we must acknowledge has impacted the gains Washington Unified achieved to reduce inequities. I recognize and appreciate the efforts of the Washington Unified School District. The staff have been nothing short of heroic this past year, finding creative ways to support our community and engage students amid these incredible challenges. The pandemic, like all major crises, will provide an opportunity to improve our current educational system and invest in new and innovative approaches in the district. I would be honored to once again work alongside district and community stakeholders.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. It's time. Sorry. Geez, God, stop it. Okay.
Miss Lucia Lopez, you may begin, and Co-President Pizzotti will begin as when you start.
Hello, my name is Lucia Lopez. I am a parent of Washington Unified School District. I'm married, have 4 children. I have 2 sons that graduated from River City and are now in college. I also have 2 daughters in 5th and 7th grade at Riverbank Elementary. I also work at Dignity Health. I work in the engineering department as an environmental care data analysis, conducting purchasing, dealing with vendors, quotes, and dealing with all of our regulatory compliance for the hospital. I've worked there for the last 5 years. I've also worked in the same exact position at Sutter Health for 20 years. Why I want to be a board member? I would like to be able to represent our parents of District 1, to be a voice. I want to ensure there is equity between all schools of our district, especially the K-8 schools in the district, ensuring all our children have the same opportunities and activities. I know sometimes other schools are able to do more since they have larger PTC or PTO clubs. Being back at Riverbank with my daughters the last 8 years, we have an awesome small group of parents for our PTC club, but I do know that we do not have a club with a lot of funds compared to other schools and sometimes feel our kids miss out. I want to make sure all our schools have the same type of electives, opportunities, and sports, especially for our 6th through 8th middle school students, ensuring we have the training for our staff for certain types of elective classes that are at other schools that are not in District 1 schools. I also want to help our students and families during this pandemic. I feel there are so many students and families that are still struggling during these times. I want to make sure that the students that did fall behind are getting the help that they need, continuing to making sure we have communication with all families in various ways and in multiple languages as needed, making sure our students are taken care of at home also. We need to be there for their emotional needs too. I want to be able to continue to help families with technology support they need. I'm glad we have the new Chromebooks, but also making sure all our families have the training they need, especially to support their students while learning at home. Also to help our families who are struggling with computer internet issues to get the support they need right away, possibly with an online ticket system or a phone call system. I also want to help to ensure teachers and staff are safe along with students when we do return to our campuses. I also want to make sure teachers are taken care of as far as their pay and benefits, making sure our district are using funds wisely during our pandemic to take care of our students and staff. I also want to help to ensure students have the opportunities during their time at WUSD to continue their education through college or trade schools and making sure we have multiple paths for our students to succeed. I would like for you to consider me to help represent District 1 in our school district as a board member.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Yes, Clerk Venegas?
Yeah, quick question, Co-President Jackie Wong. Are we able to, just for viewership, is the screen when people can see, are we looking at the slide? Is the slide necessary when answering, after we pose a question? Is it necessary just because then it goes to a small screen when the individual is speaking?
On process, we don't have to have the slide or the question up. It's up to what is the pleasure of the board? Do we prefer, would we like the slides so that the public can see the sequence and the questions, or would you, I defer to, I think it makes sense to maybe actually have, I've been trying to spotlight the interviewees as we go through. And so I know it's not the same, especially on YouTube, because then you don't see. Perhaps we, again, what do others think?
I feel uncomfortable doing this in the middle of a
question.
I would have preferred to have waited till the end of question one. I just watched Elk Grove just went through this same process. They did have the full question. It didn't say question one, it said the question. Some of these questions are going to get quite wordy. It is helpful to see it there. If we were in the boardroom, it would be on the dais, and it would also be in front of the candidate. So if there is a way for the public for it to be spotlighted, but I think for our end, we are making the decision tonight, we can spotlight them, but I'm uncomfortable making a change in the middle of speaking.
Okay. Co-President Pizzotti?
Yeah, I mean, since this tends to take up my entire screen, I can't read the question unless it's on the presentation on the slide deck, or unless I can read it and slide the Zoom presentation on the side. So I would say if we can, keep it in front of us so everybody has a chance to read the question. Also, I was just sent a text saying that Karen Floriano has been trying to get in, but she never received the panelist link to get in to the Zoom meeting. So apparently she is here. So maybe we just put her down at number 5, and maybe Yorgos, can you try and send Karen an email link?
We'll take care of it offline.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Her turn hasn't come up yet, so we can proceed.
Right.
Until she comes up, I just want to also just make it clear that with due diligence, our staff did make several calls and tried several times. So just wanted to say it's not necessarily we are not doing anything for the public, that there were several times that staff tried to reach out to Ms. Floriano. So, okay, so at least for question one, why don't we keep the same standard format, Clerk Venegas, and then we can talk about, again, we as a, maybe we want to email them to, maybe we can put them in the chat or something for the panelists so everybody can read on this next round. We'll try it a couple times. I know this isn't the normal format, but maybe if we can actually, I'm happy to cut and paste the question number 2 inside the chat so that folks can read it when they are answering to the panelists. Does that sound like a good compromise? Okay.
Yes, I believe we continue. Yes.
Okay. So next up will be Ms. Christy Barnes. Same question. Provide an introduction, a brief introduction as to why you want to be a member for the Washington Unified School District.
Right. Thank you, Co-President Wong and Co-President Pizzotti, Trustee Venegas, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez, and Superintendent Dr. Hildreth. And thank you for this opportunity to interview for the vacancy in Area 1. I am a nurse practitioner. My husband and I both come from a long line of teachers and principals. Public education has always been prevalent in our lives and something we're passionate about for our children and others in the community. The diverse population here in West Sacramento requires creativity and careful planning to provide equity across the district and to strengthen our communities. So I would like to be a part of the team brainstorming on the ways to improve, listening to members of our community and advocating for the children. We have lived in West Sacramento for 3 years. I'm encouraged by the sense of community that exists here, and we absolutely love living here. I think with my background in nursing and public health, I hope that I might bring a valuable perspective to the board. I have 2 kids that attend or will attend the Elkhorn Dual Immersion Program, a first grader and an upcoming kindergartner. I have a great appreciation for what parents are going through during COVID right now because I'm living through it as well. As a parent of 2 kids who attend Elkhorn, I know and appreciate the diversity of the community here in West Sacramento. As when we were going to school, I saw the diversity in person every day. The achievement gap is growing wider during this pandemic, unfortunately. Parents aren't able to look for a job, fill out unemployment paperwork and health care forms, all while teaching their own children. We must reopen our schools, and we absolutely must do it safely. I run my own business, and because I run my own business, I understand the challenges surrounding the fiscal responsibilities that reopening schools safely presents. I think this experience would also be beneficial to the school board. And finally, working in hospice, I feel that I have been able to practice compassion and respect that every human deserves. As parents, teachers, administrators, family members, and school board members, we are contributing to the development of these resilient young minds. As a society, we are responsible for showing these children the same compassion and respect. My background in nursing has provided me with valuable tools that would certainly cross over into serving as a member of the WUSD school board. And I would be honored to serve on the board of WUSD with each one of you and to represent Area 1 if given the opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciated that. Yorgos or Mario, do we have Mrs. Floriano logged in or via phone?
Well, President Wong, there's still no confirmation on Ms. Floriano.
We will continue to move on until we're going to move on unless there's a direction from the board that we want to wait. I don't see so. And yes.
I would just say we could do that at the end after Jose goes.
Okay.
We can see if we can reach out one last time.
All right. Mr. Garcia.
Okay.
Welcome to the wonderful world of Mrs. Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for giving us all this opportunity to participate in this process. It's new for all of us. At least I'm not a politically inclined person, so I've never been in this situation, but I have interviewed before for other for other job positions. But just want to start by introducing myself. My name is Jose Garcia. I'm a longtime resident of West Sacramento. I've been here for roughly 41 years, and I married 19 years. I have 5 children, which is kind of unheard of these days. But I love my kids, and I want them to have a great schools to go to and get an education, because it prepares them for the future. Like I said, I'm going to keep it kind of brief, because I know some of the questions that you're going to ask later on probably are going to, ask various questions of our experiences and our background. So for just time purposes, I'll just kind of keep it short. I want to answer the first question on why I want to be a school board member. It's because I think that it provides a valuable and rewarding way of serving and giving back to my community. I learned that early on from my parents, and I love this community. Like I said, I grew up here since I was 7 years old, and I've gone through all the schools here, starting with Elkhorn. Some of you come from the Elkhorn Village area, from the 2nd grade on up, and then into Alice Norman, and then Golden State Middle School. Back then it was junior high, and we were the first class at River City we were the first 9th grade class at River City. Before that, it was a senior high school. So I come from the community. I've been here, like I said, practically all my life. I have not moved away or anything like that. Another reason is for my 5 children. I want to obviously be a good role model for them. And I also have a lot of relatives here. So again, we're all kind of related here. So lots of relatives, friends, and neighbors that also attend the Washington Unified School District schools. And so I think that we as a community deserve beautiful, clean, and safe schools with highly qualified teachers and staff that care and respect our students and our community members, and welcome them with open arms every time they step on each of the campuses. I also want to contribute by being a voice for Area 1 regarding important decisions that will affect our children's education and future. I think I have a very good rapport with the community already. I've been the PTC. I've been involved in PTC for the last 8 years. Been the president at Riverbank Elementary School. Like I said, I have 5 kids. Two are in high school, and three are at middle at Riverbank Elementary School.
Best time. I'm sorry.
Oh, that was short. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am going to allow for a few minutes, one last shot for Ms. Karen Floriano, Yorgos.
Hang on.
Co-President Juan, thank you. I actually just tried calling Ms. Floriano again and left a voicemail at exactly 6:16 p.m. Pardon me, but I have not heard back.
Co-President, I'm not sure who's texting you. I don't know if Ms. Floriano is texting you.
Yeah, I'm trying. Hang on. Wait, I just got a text. Hang on.
Co-President Wong, also for the record, the number that I am dialing is the cell phone that she submitted via her qualification form.
I would just say let's pause for 5 seconds here. Let me see if I can get a hold of her.
While we are waiting, I am going to type question number 2 into the chat box so that all the panelists and the attendees who are on Zoom see this. And then we are going to try it a different way for question number 2 if we don't want to share the screen, and try Clerk Venegas's way, and perhaps that would meet the need. So Mario, I'm going to ask you to stop screen share. And for this sequencing, the first person up would be the second person, who would be Ms. Lucia Lopez. And I know we're being really gracious with Mrs. Floriano, but this is a last call. I'm not sure, again, who is texting you, Mr. Pizzotti. but I feel like the other four candidates
I was
have been here.
I was trying to call Miss Floriano. I'm sorry.
And that's okay. Staff have also done that.
Yeah.
So I do trust staff, and I believe perhaps you and staff have the same number. My understanding is so.
We do. I just wanted to, because of, I didn't want anybody to call us out on process on not trying to reach out and not, I'm doing it right here on the phone with people present to see in this recorded meeting that I'm actually trying to reach out to her. So I want to make sure that it is, recorded that I'm trying to reach out.
Also want to be clear that I trust staff to have who have
I do
also
too. I do too. I just didn't want us to get called out for
it. You're facilitating the second question, so we will wait until you're ready to facilitate that second question.
After you do. I left a voicemail. Let's go with question 2. Please describe your public service, community involvement, and the strengths you would bring as a trustee to this board.
Community involvement and public service. So I help with the Riverbank Elementary PTC Club for the last 7-8 years. I do currently serve on Riverbank's School Site Council, part of that. Being part of PTC, do also participate in our Coffee with Superintendent. Our Linda had met with like a lot of the PTC leaders. We're meeting every couple months, been involved in that. I'm been part of our LCAP committees with the district. Also part of the return to school parent and staff work groups that we had that we've been having for these last couple of months or so, just input and stuff into getting our kids and staff back to school. Previously, when my boys were in high school, I did serve as treasurer and scholarship committee. I was part of our board on the River City Athletic Boosters Club. Also as a board member for many years on the West Sacramento Girls Softball League. Currently, and then also currently just a Girl Scout troop leader. And just strengths, just being a mom, just being a parent, being part of this district for the last 15 years, growing up in this community. I went to school at all the, here in the district, also Westmore Oaks, Golden State when it was, and then River City. So just being part of different boards and committees to help me hopefully be a great board member and just bringing a voice as a parent and as other parents of this district.
All right, thank you. Jose, the question is.
I'm sorry, Co-President Pizzotti. Ms. Christy Barnes would be the following person.
I'm sorry. Christy, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to skip you, Christy. Christy, next is, you're up, and it's please describe your public service, community involvement, the strengths you would bring as a trustee to this board.
Great, thank you. So before COVID, I was active in the Elkhorn Village activities and meetings. I'm proud to have kids that are going to be going there. I frequently attended Coffee with the Principal. I volunteered in the classroom regularly, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly based on need. I participated in many Booster Club activities, and I listened to and occasionally participated in most of the school board meetings. Some of the activities in the classroom and at Booster events included throwing a party where the students brought in foods from different cultures and celebrated by tasting the foods and appreciating the uniqueness in each culture. At most of the booster and holiday events, there were wonderfully diverse cultural elements. For example, most of the food sold at these events was typical of Mexico. There was a dance troupe that performed Aztec dancing. There were Dia de los Muertos altars at the Fall Festival and at our Halloween boo-through. At Santa Night, students sang songs from Las Posadas. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with that, it's a extended devotional prayer related to nativity, celebrated chiefly in Latin America, Mexico, Cuba, Guatemala, and a lot of Hispanic cultures here in the US. My work as a nurse practitioner and in hospice, and I own my own IV therapy company. During COVID, we've offered pop-ups for frontline workers to get immune boosts and D3 injections at low to no cost. We also offered flu shots and COVID-19 testing, and we're currently in the process of applying to provide the vaccines on a large scale. We're committed to serving this population of frontline workers as the social and racial disparities amongst them exist as well. These are the people keeping our communities safe, healthy, and open during this pandemic. As we embark on this new era of uncharted territory, I believe my perspective as a healthcare provider would provide extremely valuable to our parents, families, and our communities, and to the school board. In addition to my work as a nurse, I volunteer on the West Sac Dolphins during swim season. I've been involved with city cleanup, activities where we've walked through the streets of Sacramento and picked up trash. And I enjoy volunteering time to help the homeless in this community. So thank you.
Thank you. And now, sorry, Jose, it's your
Okay.
turn. Didn't mean to speak less.
Need some time to.
Christy. Jose, the question is, please describe your public service, community involvement, and the strengths you would bring as a trustee to this board.
Okay, well, again, just to reiterate, I've been here for forever, so I've had an opportunity to just to do a lot of things in my community. First and foremost, just like Lucia, we've been working together with Riverbank PTC for the last 8 years or so. So working as a president, organizing different activities and working with her and other teachers to make sure that our students have fun activities at school to link them to school. So to make that connection, to get parents to be more involved in school and school activities. So we've had a great time doing that. I also have been part of School Site Council, not just at our school for Riverbank PTC, but also served at the district level for Washington Unified. What I didn't mention before, some of my qualifications, I've been a teacher for the last 22 years. So I'm a history teacher in the El Grabant Unified School District. And so I think that background and that experience, I can relate to the students, I can relate to the parents and our community. I have been also part of the River City Booster Club and also part of the RC Parent Network Club, which is a new club for the last 4 years, actually. And we do some fundraising and trying to help out the school with graduation and things like that. I've also coached soccer at various ages for my kids and for the city of West Sacramento. I've also helped tremendously in the classroom with my own children's classes and have volunteered over the years at Riverbank Elementary School. I'm also part of a cleanup club here in West Sacramento. We go around and every 2 weeks we have a crew of people that we've been cleaning up along the river and along the banks over here by Bright and all the way down to the Jefferson underpass. So I think also valuable strength that I have is I'm bilingual. I do have a good rapport and a great relationship with the parents that live in this community in speaking Spanish. They trust me, they trust my wife, and I think that having that rapport and being able to communicate in their language, I think is a big asset as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Matthew. Is it Matt and Matthew? Which do you prefer?
Matt is fine.
Matt.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, please describe your public service, community involvement, and the strengths you would bring as a trustee to this board.
So I have over 9 years of professional experience as a general education teacher, both at the K-8 and the high school level, as well as at the district office in Washington Unified School District. My past experiences on the Curriculum Council and experience working on the district's mathematic and instructional materials adoption would allow me to help actively participate on the Curriculum Committee, which was one of the 2 committees that the board identified for the vacant position. I also have experience as an elected leader in the WSTA and served on the negotiations team, which would be valuable experience as the district continues to negotiate with unions on school reopening plans. In the past 4 years, I've worked at CDE in the special education division. During that time, I've had the opportunity to visit school districts all over California. I've worked with districts on disproportionality reviews. I've reviewed district policies and procedures to ensure statutory compliance. I facilitated root cause analysis activities with districts to ensure policies are aligned with district goals and visions. I've been a part of a multidisciplinary team from CDE leading differentiated assistance for county offices of education. And I believe these activities would help me to participate on the policy committee, which was also assigned to the vacant trustee position. I also have perspectives as a Yolo County foster parent and as a parent of a student enrolled in an SDC classroom at Elkhorn Village, because it helps me understand the complexity and difficulties facing foster youth and students with disabilities. I also have perspectives as an LGBTQ educator and community member. At the state and federal level, we don't collect data on LGBTQ students, and as a result, they are often left out of equity plans. And so having that perspective, that diverse perspective on the board would help ensuring equity for all student groups. I also have strengths in educational system design and implementation, which is probably what kind of got me out of the classroom initially in Washington Unified. And I also have a strong commitment to equity for all students. In terms of public service and community involvement, I've also served on state level committees as part of the Title II Formula Grant Program Executive Steering Committee for the Board of State and Community Corrections, which focuses on identifying grant recipients to reduce recidivism rate of juvenile offenders. When I was in Washington Unified, I served on the 7-Eleven Surplus Property Committee, the Alternative Education Advisory Committee, the Central Review Board, Curriculum Council, District Technology Committee, and the School Bond Advisory Committee for Measure B. As part of WSTA, I was an elected member of the Executive Board. I was on the negotiations team. I was on the PAR Selection Committee. I was on the Teacher Scholarship Committee, the WUSD Calendar Committee, and Health and Benefits Committee. And I've also served as the treasurer of a nonprofit organization since 2005 in Yolo County, which works with children in recreational and competitive swimming. Thank you.
Oh, that was right at 3 minutes.
I was trying to get it all in. Sorry if it sounded like a laundry list.
Okay, moving on. Question 3. Who is asking that?
That is Trustee Kirby Gonzalez will facilitate question number 3, and I will now put that in the chat for the attendees and the panelists.
Yes, so I will work to get my order since it's not in front of us now. The first question, or this question will first go to, I believe, Trustee. And that is, what are some major accomplishments of the district in the past few years? And where do you see areas for growth? How would you address the areas for growth as both an individual and as a member of the governing board?
Thank you. All right. So some of the strengths that I've observed in the Washington Unified School District is the obvious dedication and the quality of the teachers and the administration. I was able to interview and reach out to some of the schools over the past few weeks in the area that I'd be representing and to neighboring areas. And the passion and conviction of each person really strengthens my desire to serve as a school board member. Another strength I've observed in the WUSC is the utilization of the high quality programs and the resources implemented to meet the needs of each student and to improve the quality of the education. Positive behavioral interventions and support, trauma-informed services and teaching and other restorative practices seem to be very effective in reducing problematic behavior and helping students realize their full potential. And I really also am obviously in love with the dual immersion program at Elkhorn. And the utilization of the technology across the district, I think has been good with our Chromebooks and with some of our learning pods on campus for those that might not have access at home. The Bright Campus is incredible. The catering program, I think that culinary program is wonderful. And of course, AVID, those are all excellent programs and I think strengths of the district. Let's see, how would I address areas of growth as both an individual and as a member of the governing board? That is a good question. I think that to better address these areas, I would definitely continue to be involved with each of the, well, especially at Riverbank with the co-principals there and principals in neighboring areas as well to better understand how we can improve the schools and help the children more. I think attending booster meetings and attending various PTO meetings, coffees with principals or superintendent Hildreth, I think are great ways that I would be able to help grow the strengths of the district. Sorry, I'm like reading at the same time. I should stop doing that. But yeah, so I would definitely, I think some of the things that were expressed were, for example, getting out and canvassing.
Your time is up, Trustee. I apologize.
Dang it, I have more.
Stop.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and it is, I know these are big, hefty questions to have in the little chat, so with time, but I believe next is Jose Garcia. Hello. So question for you. What are some major accomplishments of the district in the past few years? And where do you see areas for growth? How would you address the areas of growth as both an individual and as a member of the governing board?
Okay, well, that's I guess there's a lot, and again, because I'm not really in the schools, I don't see a lot. But just seeing my kids learning and making progress and being educated by some great teachers here in the district, I think that's one of the biggest strengths, is seeing teachers that care, teachers that are passionate about what they do. Especially here, I only know the ones in Riverbank and River City, but I know that throughout the district, I'm sure we have some really great teachers. And so one of the things, one of the areas that I think we can grow a little bit more in would be trying to retain some of the great teachers that we have with maybe improving salaries and pay and so forth to keep them here. Obviously giving them opportunities with good benefits and things like that to keep them at our schools, because I know that for a while we had a lot of teachers that were leaving our district for various reasons. So I think that's one of our things that we need to work on. Also safety. I think that kids need to feel safe when they get to school. That's one of the first things that, when you're walking onto a campus, you need to feel welcome. You need to feel like, you're welcome there. Like you want to have an environment where you want to learn. As far as programs and things like that I think the district is doing really well is paying attention to the infrastructure of the older schools. I think, like Christy said earlier, Riverbank, we've been very fortunate when they first remodeled the whole school. It was, great things on the inside. Now we have to focus on the outside and just kind of, revamp that as well. So I really appreciate that. I think that working on addressing equality in the district, I think is a great thing that the school district is also doing. And I think there's always room to grow for that as well. But I think we're heading in the right direction. The STEM and AVID programs my kids are benefited from that as well. EAOP, my two older kids have been involved in that, and keeping the field trips to Sly Park and other places like that. Unfortunately, my sixth grader not be able to go this year, obviously for obvious reasons, but I have volunteered to go on that field trip and other field trips as well. So I think that those are some of the motivating factors for kids to keep going to school, and I think we have to keep those programs alive and find the funding to keep those around. So, and I think that's pretty much it. I think I can keep going on and on, but I think
you have 5 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I realize I've been doing first names, so I apologize for being informal, but I'll keep going for consistency with that as well. But thank you so much. And so I believe now that we are on Matt, correct, at Wilkins. So question for you. What are some of the major accomplishments of the district in the past few years, and where do you see areas for growth? How would you address the areas of growth as both an individual and as a member of the governing board?
So first off, I think the district has grown tremendously since I left during the 16-17 school year. And a lot of that is based in the creation of the strategic plan, which will be sunsetting this summer, which was really rooted in the district's vision of equity and which guided the work of the district. In terms of equity, I think the district made substantial progress on supporting students based on their need and by removing barriers, including adding additional mental health support and expanded social emotional learning and academic supports through MTSS. I think we also saw improved learning environments over the past several years for all students through a master's facility plan rooted in equity and financially supported by the community through Measure V, and which will continue to be supported with the passing of Measure Z this past election cycle. The AVID programs have always been strong in the district, and they support students who are first-generation college enrollees, and also the African American Youth Leadership Conference. I think we've seen increased educational opportunities and choice for students and expanded CTE pathways. I'll echo the dual immersion program at Elkhorn Village, the establishment of the Washington Middle College High School with enrollment numbers increasing. And we've also grown the VAPA opportunities for students from kindergarten through high school in the district. We've also seen improved parent and community engagement through the PK program, parent universities, and also developing ongoing partnerships and strengthening those partnerships with the city of West Sacramento, Yolo County, local businesses, and community organizations such as Rotary. And also the district has strongly invested in WUSD staff with improved professional development opportunities. When I left, the union, it was at this impasse with the district, and district teachers had some of the lowest salaries in the region, and now teachers have some of the highest salaries in the region. And so I think that's a lot of growth. And people oftentimes say that budgets are a statement of a district's values, and it shows that the board and previous Superintendent Luna really valued the staff in Washington Unified. Areas of improvement, I think educational inequities are growing because of the pandemic and resulting learning disruption that has exacerbated already existing systemic and racial economic inequalities, not only in our community, but in society as a whole. And we know that these specific racial and economic inequalities have effects on educational outcomes for children. So how we address it not only once schools reopen, but moving forward to ensure that we begin to again narrow some of those inequities and hopefully eventually eliminate them entirely will be needs to be rooted in data and really looking at data to drive decision making at the board level and then driving policy and procedures. I also think areas of improvement would be foster youth and students with disabilities were the lowest performing student groups in Washington USD.
Matt, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And next we have Lucia Lopez, and my screen disappears a little bit. I don't know if Co-President Wong, you're spotlighting people or how that changes, but
No one spotlighted right now, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm looking around. If I look a little silly, oh, there you are. Okay. So the question now for you, Lucia, is what are some major accomplishments of the district in the past few years, and where do you see areas for growth? How would you address the areas for growth as both an individual and as a member of the governing board?
So some of the areas that I've seen that I'm very happy with is the biggest is like our communication and I think our websites. With Georgios coming on, I worked with him a lot. Our websites are great, being able to read it in multiple languages. Even just like this past week, having an app is great. We had another app before that kind of we used. It was another company, and then you can join your school. So I like having the app. I like being able to get, even though it's kind of like the last 2 days have had so many, I've got the text message, I get the phone calls, I get the apps, but I think having multiple ways of just communication, because I felt like for a while, certain schools would communicate this and not everybody. So I think that's a big plus. Having our new Chromebooks. I know it was already in the working before the pandemic. Just getting those into the kids' hands during this time with the technology, with the pandemic, with getting our meals, that kind of stuff. Doing our Bright Campus, having more avenues, not just straight college, like opening up the doors for other type of opportunities. Our home run program with the scholarships and money for college and being able to start out college for free has been a great plus. I think some of the stuff that we need to improve still is equity. I love that our district a while ago finally did do paying slide park for everybody, no matter what. It wasn't like based off your PTC club if or parent had money. But I still think we still need to improve on that, because I still feel like I follow like every PTC club. I follow all the schools, and I have family that say their third grader went to some other overnight field trip, and I'm like, well, why don't we have that? Like, why is it only Slide Park? So I think still equity still between what other schools do. Like it should be across the board. It shouldn't be this school gets to do this. I think I think it should be kind of even. Like if everybody's going to go to Slide Park, we're all going to Slide Park. If we're all going to go to Fort Sutter, that's what we should do. I think it should maybe be a more equity between all the schools, basically elementary schools, when it does come to field trips. I think just improving, just more being with the parents, just possibly, board members. I know we've had board members at some of our coffees and meetings and stuff like that, and we all have jobs too, and I work full time, and so I understand that, whether we just getting out there more with the parents. I know I've heard a lot of stuff with parents asking for more help when it comes to technology, like why do I have to go to the school, and then why can't I just call the help desk? Like why just maybe just a more better avenue. I know the district put out a Google page on technology, and I have it saved.
Lucia, I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That is everyone, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that is everyone. So Clerk Venegas is next, and just for everyone, I am putting all the questions in the chat box if you want to refer to it. The panelists and the attendees should be able to see them.
All right. So question number 4, and we are going to start with, I believe, Jose Garcia, correct? We're starting with Jose.
That is correct.
The question is, obviously, yeah, I'll just stick to the question because I'll go off of it. What does leading with equity mean to you?
Okay, well, leading with equity, I don't know, trying to read the question, kind of understand it a little bit more. Well, I know what equity means to me, and I think we'll kind of start with that. And obviously, when I think equity to me means having equal facilities across the district. I think it also means having equal access to well-qualified and trained teachers. Having equity means that you have the same amount of staff that is watching over our kids, because obviously when our kids leave our home, we're entrusting the schools and the district to not to babysit, but to take care of them, to make sure that they're safe regardless across the board. And I think the district does that well for the most part, but I think that having well-trained staff, not just hiring on the spot, here you go, stick you here, you're a substitute, yard duty or whatever. I think that we need to train those people. If we're going to be hiring them, train them before they actually step foot on the campus. So that way kids feel, staff feel safe. You'll have happy employees, happy teachers, and happy parents. So that's what equity means to me. And I think leading with equity means that if you have all those things, a lot of the other things will kind of fall into place. So I think that, when parents, as Lucia was mentioned earlier, parents see the equity, and they're on Facebook and they're on YouTube, and they're looking what other schools are doing. And when we don't see the same things happening in our schools, and we see that other kids are get more things, we look at, then we have people that aren't happy. And I think that's when we have, people at the board meetings that are complaining and so forth, and unhappy, and it just causes friction between our community and the board and the district. And I think that if we address those issues, I think we'll have a lot more success in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next person on here is Matthew Wilkins. So the question again is, what does leading with equity mean to you?
I think anytime you begin a question with leading, I always want to start with data. What are the students' needs in the district? What are the barriers that are, preventing students from being successful? And really starting to take a, comprehensive look at how can we ensure equitable outcomes for all students? Equity is not the same as equality. And, I think lots of research has shown that. Not every student needs exactly the same thing to be able to succeed. And depending on students' backgrounds, depending on students' trauma, depending on students, specific individualized needs, certain students are going to need more resources and more supports than other students. And I think anytime that I lead from in regards to equity, I always look at, I want equitable outcomes. And so how can I support each individual student to make, in knowing, and how do I know each individual student's needs, so that we can provide the correct amount of resources, the correct amount of support. And if there are barriers in the way of students being able to achieve, how can we break those down? Whether it's policy decisions, whether, in enacting policy decisions, whether it's, really making fiscal decisions on what types of programs you're bringing to a district, or how you're going to allocate those to school sites. Not every school site might get, equal resources, because some schools may have higher needs based on the students that are attending those schools. I think it would be wonderful if at one day we could look at, a California school dashboard 5x5 grid for all the schools, and we wouldn't be able to tell north from south or any school site, because all of the student outcomes are really equal across the board, regardless of where a student was born or where a student is from, district, area 1 or any other area. The schools provide equal, equitable opportunities for every student in the district. And so that's really what kind of leading with equity means to me. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Next person is Lucia Lopez. And again, the question is, what does leading with equity mean to you?
I think just leading with equity, just continuing to just make sure that everything is fair, just between all of our schools, all of our students, making sure that that's where, money is allocated. I know we do have Title I schools that do get more money, but just making sure still overall budget wise, and making sure that we are making sure our resources are put correctly when it comes to safety, when it comes to our teacher salary at all the different schools, just keeping it even, just making sure that we are taking care of our families that speak in other languages, and making sure that we do get the communication to them, that we get the resources that they need, the parents need. And I think maybe doing that, especially for like the K-8 schools when it comes to equity, because you do just have the one high school besides the middle school, besides the Washington College High School, just making sure like our principals are working together to make sure that we do have equity, making sure that they are similar, you know, like me and Jose mentioned, like we see other schools that are able to do other stuff, and then it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that other schools on the north side versus the south side, that they get these electives, they get robotics and other stuff. And, you know, our schools still, we have very few electives for our students. And I don't think we should have that. Just working with the principals, still making sure that even simple things like our websites, like they do look similar. I know they've worked on it, but I mean, I still see just school websites, just making sure that we're all the same. It shouldn't be any different. If a school or teachers or principals doing one thing, we should be doing it at all the schools. So just working on that, hopefully as a board member, just to make sure that we're fair between all of our schools and all of our students and family. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. And last but not least, we have Christy. And the question is, again, what does leading with equity mean to you?
Thank you. I love this question. I like it for two reasons. One, because I really appreciate the fact that as a nurse, I feel like I have worked in the ER and I've worked in hospice and I've done some palliative care. I've worked in different settings, and I feel like those settings have really helped me to sort of develop my skills as a nurse, but then also as just a human providing care to people. And I hope that that will play into whatever I do in life. So I think, you know, the fairness, and like we talked about, equity is not equality. Equity is making sure that basically across the board, we all have the same opportunities and the same resources to fulfill whatever potential we might have. So I think being a nurse, I've had a really great opportunity to be able to see the different perspectives of a lot of different people and the lives of a lot of different people. That can be really difficult to do because, you know, we have our own experiences and we have our own lives. So looking into others and recognizing where they are, and then helping to either, you know, helping to lift them up, helping to get them to a place where they could realize their full potential by, you know, respecting them and providing compassion, I think is really important. Additionally, just as a leader, just being able to look at across the board where our resources have been allocated and where they could be allocated, and how we could change things, you know, if need be, to ensure that there is a fairness across the district. So yeah, I think those are. I could talk for a really long time, but I'm afraid I'm going to get beeped. So thank you.
You have a full minute left if you want to use the minute,
Do I?
or you can give it up when you do.
Yeah. No. So I also, one of the things when I was talking with some of the principals, one of the things that I think we realized was, and I didn't get to say in my last question, was that we sometimes aren't able to reach all of the kids. And so one of the things that I would love to be able to do as a leader is get out into the community, knocking on doors, whether it means, you know, visiting homes, making phone calls, whatever it is, to build those relationships. A couple of our schools service some kids who really don't have a lot of resources, and it's almost impossible to contact them via telephone and email. So getting out there, you know, boots on the ground, and helping them recognize or realize what it is that they actually could have access to, and then also helping them gain that access. So if they need help in whatever form, let's troubleshoot that. In hospice, we often have—
Your time is now up.
Thank you all for your answers, and pass it on to the next.
That would be me. So again, this is actually a long one, so I am typing it into the chat function now. I will give folks a minute to read it. But I will also read it out loud. Describe the objectives of a good board meeting, as well as how you will prepare for a meeting, and what would you do if you believed administrators had not provided you with the accurate and complete information for making a decision? Because that never happens. And so first up is Mr. Wilkins. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you. And Co-President Pizzotti, if you wouldn't mind timekeeping for me, that would be lovely. You can begin.
Okay, thank you. So the objectives of a good board meeting, I think it's really important to make sure that you're taking care of the business of the district at board meetings, and that you have the opportunity for community engagement, and that you have an opportunity for all voices to be heard, and that the meetings are really transparent. And that the values of the district are really clear and concise, so that the community understands what is the purpose of the different agenda items on a board meeting agenda. How I would prepare for the meeting, I think anytime I prepare anything in a school district, it's with lots of data and lots of research. I think it's really important to know as much as possible prior to making a decision, and whether that is going into the community and talking to people. I think qualitative and quantitative data are both really important ways of collecting data on a topic. I also think reading the board transmittals, which I know sometimes can be extremely lengthy, and then doing additional research, whether it's data that's available through the state or the federal government, or even just looking at individual school sites, talking to administrators. If I ever believe that administrators have not provided me with accurate or complete information, I think it's kind of one of those things where it's always important to assume positive intent, and just asking questions and listening, asking questions about the data that the administration did provide, and then kind of reconciling that with the data that was collected during the data collection process, and trying to come up with kind of an understanding of, is it just because there's a different perspective as to why the administrators might be coming up with different answers to questions than what the community members or teachers or other stakeholders might be presenting? Or is there really something that something else that's going on that needs to be really looked at? I believe that all of us entered in education because we care deeply about kids, and so I think it's important to listen to the other side, and to make sure that you understand the perspective that someone's coming from. And I think it's also important, to build on similarities in plans, so that if there is some disagreement or there is a discrepancy with the data, really making sure that people understand this is our intent and this is what our objective is, and then kind of going back to that and revisiting the data so that it can happen. And sometimes those conversations will happen, hopefully before a board meeting, so that administration isn't caught off guard. But it also needs to be discussed at an open session, so that there is transparency with the public, and so that the public understands kind of the process for making decisions and everything that was taken into account when those decisions were being made. So it's not necessarily trying to, gotcha questions for the administration, but it's really, making sure that I'm prepared for a board meeting, making sure that the staff is prepared for the board meeting, so that they can.
I'm sorry, Matt, that's your time.
Okay, thank you so much.
So next up is Ms. Lucia Lopez, and I will read the question again. Describe the objectives of a good board meeting, as well as how you will prepare for a meeting. And what would you do if you believed administrators had not provided you with the accurate and complete information for making a decision?
So I think just a good board meeting is just having all the information ready and ahead of time, making sure agenda is put out to the public, making sure that, especially with the virtual, making sure that we're communicating that to families, maybe not just Facebook, making sure that we're sending links and stuff into the public via email, just another avenue, or even text message, maybe not just relying on Facebook, making sure that any kind of attachments are readily available for the public, for the board members. I prepare just making sure that I have all the information, reading all the attachments, and then talking to families as needed, or staff as needed, or teachers as needed, doing any kind of research that I would need, whether that's also even as coming in, if selected as board member, doing any kind of training that's available through the different avenues. If something wasn't accurate, possibly postponing it to a future board meeting, making sure that we have all the accurate information. If we needed to go back to administrators to get that information, even though sometimes it does feel like we do, sorry, my child just walked in and threw me off.
That happens to us all the time.
I know. And so just making sure that, we have all the information. And even though sometimes it feels like the public and the parents don't want us to postpone don't want the board to postpone, but if we need accurate information, just making sure that we get the information before we proceed with making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, you guys have watched us live. We have children popping in our laps all the time. So it is okay. So Miss Christy Barnes, same question to you. And so the question again is, describe the objectives of a good board meeting, as well as how you will prepare for a meeting, and what would you do if you believed administrators had not provided you with accurate and complete information for decision making?
Right. So I think the objectives of a good board meeting would be organization. A well-organized and well-run board meeting is very important. I think it needs to be fair in that people need to be heard, especially folks who might feel disenfranchised or otherwise have difficulty being heard. Being prepared is very important. So gathering all the information that is important or is necessary beforehand. Of course, the question also includes what would we do if we believed administrators had not provided us with the accurate and complete information. I think the critical thinking skills are really important. I think that finding appropriate ways and tactful ways to be able to request that information and kind of dig that information out if we feel there's something that is missing is very important. So maintaining good relationships with administration, maintaining good relationships with teachers and community members, parents, is very important in order to extract all of the information we need. And how would I prepare? I think just by being involved, absolutely staying on top of data, of reports. I think being prepared to ask appropriate questions during the meeting is important. And yeah, I think trying to just hear the voices of the community beforehand, and then also, like you said, getting all of the information needed from administration is really important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Mr. Jose Garcia, you are next up. And so I will read the question. Describe the objectives of a good board meeting, as well as how you will prepare for a meeting, and what would you do if you believed administrators had not provided you with the accurate and complete information for making a decision?
Well, first of all, that would be the worst meeting to attend. As you can imagine, teaching 22 years, I've been in thousands and thousands of meetings, and I think that's one of the downsides to having a meeting like that, where people are not providing you with the information. You don't really get a lot of things done. You don't get a lot of things accomplished. So I think having a clear agenda with clear objectives and always, first of all, having that, bringing that to the table. I'm a note taker. It's again, from having the teaching background, I always have my notepad, whether it's something important or something minute that kind of caught my attention, highlighting and bringing those notes back to when I'm asking questions of the presenter, whoever, whether it's an administrator or it's a union rep or whatever it might be. But I think that doing your homework is super important, both from a student perspective, and also from a board perspective as well. I think that we don't need to have a 5-hour meeting when it can be done in 2 or 3 hours. So I think that if everybody does their homework by reading up on everything prior to the meeting, I think that things can get accomplished, and we don't go in full circles asking the same question over and over again and not really getting a concrete answer. I value honesty and transparency. So when we have somebody coming up and with a gripe or a complaint, or maybe even something more positive, I like to get concrete details. I like to know exactly what is it that you're looking for, what is it that you need, from us as a board. I value also productivity, so getting things done, like I said earlier, valuing everybody's time. Again, not just another meeting. I think that finally, I would end the meeting by stressing the information that I would need from the presenter to get my job done, to be able to accomplish the objectives from the meeting. So if they think that we need to put more emphasis on a particular program, then let it be it. Make sure that that's exactly what you're looking for. Don't keep adding and adding to the list because we have to start from the first thing. So I think just kind of keeping things clear and simple, and not beating around the bush. I think everybody's time is very valuable, and I think that this is not. I think that we would value more from being productive and having all the right information. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's the last candidate. So we'll move on to, I believe, Co-President Pizzotti, you have the next question. I will go ahead and enter that question now, also a very long one, into the chat box for both the panelists and the attendees. If you want to take a moment to read that. And Co-President Pizzotti, you are facilitating this question.
Thank you, President Wong. Could you also keep time for this one for me? Appreciate that. Okay. So I believe we're on to Mr. Wilkins. You'll be on number 6.
Mr. Wilkins started last time, so
oh, he did. Okay, I'm sorry. So then we are now down to Lucia.
Correct.
Okay. So Ms. Lopez, in question 6, in light of COVID-19 and returning to school, how would you balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs when providing staff direction?
Okay. I think that you guys can hear me, right? Because it says...
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, because it's saying to mute myself. I think it's going to take a lot. I think it's going to take a lot of input. I think just with our board meetings, it's still going to just continue to listening to the parents on public comments, continue with the surveys. I know we've had a little bit better input as far as the surveys, more people are returning them. I know the last survey did have place for comments and suggestions. I think it's just still going to just continue listening to the parents, continue listening to comments. I think opening up finally that survey, like I said, with the comments, gathering those comments, making sure all the board members are able, and I'm not sure, I obviously missed the last meeting, so I'm not sure. Finally, we have a comment section, so I'm not sure if I'm hoping or assuming that all those comments are now going to the board members. So reading every single one of those comments, I think, making sure that you hear every parent's voices. Same with the teachers. I know teachers have surveys, just listening. And obviously we have to, no matter what, follow state and federal law. We can't go against that. Staff considerations, obviously with the input from the staff, from your administrators. I think maybe sometimes, yeah, you could have your personal values and beliefs, but I think as the board member, yeah, it's nice that we have our opinion, but we also need to make sure that we are representing our district, that we represent, and we're representing our parents and our families, being a board member. So I know this is, I mean, no, we've never had this. So it is still a tough question to figure out, like, how do we do it? And I think mainly it just, like I said, it's just still listening to every single comment, listening to every single input and comment and suggestion on those surveys. And I think you guys are doing a good job. I know we've gotten the survey via text, via Facebook, via website, via email. So I think, you know, I don't know if it's, I can't remember if it's unanimous or how, you know, there's a way, obviously, if we need to reach out to those that parents that have never possibly done a survey, maybe because of language or whatever, maybe even having administrators, principals, or staff, maybe calling families as we get closer and closer, hopefully, to returning, to maybe figuring out why they haven't done the survey, to see what their opinion is also. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next is Christy. Question 6 is, in light of COVID-19 and returning to school, how would you balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs when providing staff direction?
This is a huge question.
Completely loaded.
Yeah, I actually love this. I said that once before, but I do love this question too. Sorry. And because for the past year, I have been working on how to get these kids back to school. And so it's tough. It's really tough. There are so many things to balance and so many people to hear, so many things to consider and different perspectives. So I think first it's like in nursing, you have to assess the situation. You know, you have to figure out, I think we really need to get a good pulse on how people feel. Like Lucia was saying, I think it's important to continue with the surveys, to really review the comments, to review the questions and consideration, or the thoughts, and consider the input from the community and how they're feeling and what some people feel safe, some people don't feel safe. Some people, you know, have very personal experiences with COVID and some people don't. So there is a very broad feeling and concern or lack of concern per each family and each student. Needs are very different, of course. Some people are able to pay private tutors to help their students along when schools are closed, and many are not. So it's important to consider where we are as we're going back to school. You know, we will get there someday. So it's very important to be sure that we balance that as best we can. Also, the state and federal laws seem to be different, I guess, if we're talking about when to return and when to reopen and when to close, and they seem to vary weekly, so fluctuate weekly, if you will. And I know that's difficult. So I think continuing to assess and reassess is very important, considering the views and the beliefs of every person in the community, valuing the views and the beliefs of every person in the community, providing the resources that the teachers are asking for to keep them safe, but then also to provide resources to students to keep them safe and to keep them educated and participating in activities. I don't think my personal values and beliefs should necessarily, everybody has them, but I don't know that they necessarily should trump any other direction. I think we need to hear each other. I think we need to understand each other. I think we need to recognize where each other is coming from as best as we can, and try to get kids back to school in light of COVID safely again, and teachers, administrative staff, everyone. So I hope that's not too vague.
And your time is up.
Thank you very much, Christy. Jose, you are next. And the question is, in light of COVID-19 and the returning to school, how would you balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs when providing staff direction?
Okay, well, it is. Well, first of all, that's a challenge. It's a big challenge to balance all those things. But I think that at the peak of all these issues, I think safety should be the number one issue, and the safety of our students, our teachers, our families. We have families that are home with older adults that are very delicate, that have pre-existing conditions, and I think that's the danger of it all. That nobody wants to lose a grandparent or older parent that maybe has some, like I said, pre-existing conditions. So I think safety should be the top priority. Everybody has to feel safe as a whole, not just the people that yell the loudest or make the most fuss. And I think we have to make sure that just because we don't want them at the district office complaining to the superintendent or the principal or this or that, I don't think we have to make sure that we address those issues and respect and listen. We do have to listen to those people. We have to listen to them with those very compassionate skills of addressing their issues and making them feel comfortable. And so that way they can listen to our reasoning why we're not back at school or why we have these certain rules. I think if we have empathy for those concerns and those students and what they're going through, because we're going through our own personal things, but from a child's perspective, there could be all kinds of internal emotional issues. So I think as a district, we definitely need to focus on those mental issues. Maybe in the district where I work, we're trying to implement, and I know it's hard right now with the different levels of the COVID-19, going from purple to red and to orange and so forth. We're working on a porch visit program where we're training teachers to visit those students that are, obviously they have to agree to it, and maybe from a distance, just to check up on them. I think that seeing a smiling teacher that you're seeing on the screen, not the same thing as somebody driving by. Maybe they can stay in their car. You can stay behind your screen door, or behind your property more than 6 feet apart and saying, hi, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Whatever it might be. I think, and I know that obviously it involves time and things like that, but I think that's a very personal thing that could be done to show, love and care for the students. And I think that goes a long way, because a lot of these kids are starting to get depressed. They're starting to get, very emotional. I know that there's been
Your time is up. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Like that.
I'm sorry to cut you off at that point.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Jose. Now, Matt, we're on to question 6, and the question reads, in light of COVID-19 and returning to school, how would you balance community concerns, staff needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs when providing staff direction?
I think anytime that a decision, especially one as important as this, needs to be made, it needs to be rooted in state and federal statute. I think anytime somebody's sworn into public office, it's always one of those things that you have to protect and defend, the law of the land. After that, I would definitely root any decision-making process in the vision of equity that the district already holds, and making sure that we're always looking through that lens of equity when we're making decisions in policy, especially policy decisions. I also think that it's important to remember that school board members are the policymakers closest to the student, and that they're also accountable to the community. So making sure that they're hearing all stakeholder input and that they're collecting all of that data to make purposeful and well-informed decisions is incredibly important, especially in light of COVID-19 and the disruption it has caused. I also think that, weighing the staff's need to feel safe when they return to school, also weighing in, mental health and those types of services. If staff don't feel safe, they're not going to be able to best support our students in a learning environment. And if they are not best supporting students when they return to school, then, you know, it kind of comes into question, why did we return to school in the first place? I think language is also incredibly important. I think Mr. Malik spoke to it tonight in open comment, and I think Trustee Kirby Gonzalez also spoke to it last night. You know, a lot of the data comes out, talks about learning loss, but that can be very, you know, confrontational with educators. And so using terms like learning disruption, you know, can really help, you know, heal and bring and build on similarities and compromise and making sure that we're listening to different perspectives. Also, I think it would be really important to collaborate with other local and state agencies, you know, certainly the Department of Public Health, Yolo County Department of Health, when making these decisions and making sure that we, you know, have all of the data necessary to make well-informed decisions that are really going to support our students, and making sure that we're meeting the needs of all students when making these big decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to 7.
Okay, and now this is the time where you are able to make a closing statement. And so you have, I believe we changed it to 3 minutes, but don't feel any pressure to keep up to 3 minutes, 1 to 3 minutes. How about that? And so first up is Ms. Christy Barnes. Are you ready with your closing statement? Ms. Barnes?
Sorry, it's flashing to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I just want to say thank you to the board for allowing me the time to talk with you about myself and my experience, the reasons I would like to be on the Washington Unified School District Board. I do believe strongly that my healthcare experience, including the trauma-informed healthcare, combined with me being rooted in our community and having 2 children in WSD, along with my commitment to ensuring access to all children in our community to receive the quality education, make me the right person for this position. So I want to be a thought leader with all of you. And again, I thank you so much for the consideration of my application.
Thank you so much. Mr. Garcia, I believe you are next after Ms. Barnes. Just your closing statement, anything you would like to share with us.
Thank you. So again, also just like Christy, thank you for allowing us this opportunity to interview for this position. I think all of us have the right intentions of running. I'm not a political person. I don't have any type of ambition for anything else other than just helping my community. As my profession, teaching 22 years, I think I bring that valuable experience of being in the classroom and continue to be in the classroom. I've never had the ambition to go even above teaching. I love teaching. I love being in the classroom. I was asked by my community members, people that I know, like I said, I've been here 41 years, so I know my community, I know my neighborhood. And I think, you know, having that rapport, having that connection to my community makes me a valuable asset to the school board, and representing them well. Being bilingual allows me to communicate with all those, with all my parents and students that live in this community. So I think I have that respect and that and rapport with them. And again, I have the biggest reason why, or one of the most important things is I have kids in the school. So I want them to grow up here. I know that, you know, education for me is, you know, pivotal. It is the most important thing. I think education opens up doors, opens up windows, opens up opportunities for this community. I think that that's the best. That's the most powerful thing we can give students is an education, because that's something that can never be taken away from them. And I think that I would help in establishing and passing, you know, good school reforms to make sure that students have access to equality and safety at schools. Thank you.
Thank you, very much appreciated. Mr. Wilkins, do you have any last parting words for us?
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Ensuring equitable opportunities in public education has always been at the core of who I am as an educator. I believe that my personal background as both a parent and a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, as well as my professional experiences as an educator, will allow me to collaborate with and provide a unique perspective to the board as you continue your work towards realizing educational equity and improving outcomes for all students in the district. As I mentioned previously, foster youth and students with disabilities are some of the lowest performing student groups in Washington Unified based on the California School Dashboard in 2019. And I believe that my background can really help assist in driving policy that will ensure equitable outcomes. I feel privileged to live in a community with such a strong commitment and engagement in public schools, and I love Washington Unified. And it really has been an honor to participate in this appointment process along 3 of my neighbors who reflect our diverse and dynamic community. So I just want to thank you again and good luck on your decision making.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate that. Ms. Lucia Lopez, do you have any last, a closing statement?
Yeah. Just once again, just thank you for this opportunity. Just being able to do this, just something new, and like that we are given this opportunity to be able to fill this position in our district. Just hopefully, the board will just continue, whether it's myself or any of the other 3 candidates, just to make sure we're still working on our technology, working on a safe return, making sure we're helping all students equally and with equity, and making sure we're taking care of our staff, our teachers, administrators, all the way to custodians, to cafeteria workers, and making sure just continue just listening to the parents, listening to all the different work groups that have been discussing the return to school work group. Hopefully, I just want to be a voice as a parent. I've been part of this district. I grew up in this community too, just knowing all the different teachers and members of our school, just being a parent, just being able to give that voice as a parent, and being just a member of this community for a long time growing up here. Hopefully you'll give me an opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, very much appreciated. And so now is the time where we're going to have board discussion. I'm going to hand it over, since I opened up our process, Co-President Pizzotti, if you want to facilitate this portion.
Sure. Let me pull up the notes here. Okay.
While we're waiting, can I actually, Maureen Nakamura, you're on, because there was a question that was raised and we should have paused at the moment. Is at the time Ms. Karen Floriano was texting Co-President Pizzotti, we did due diligence over and over. Is there a potential process violation? So I just want to publicly, from your opinion, with due diligence, everything staff did, the time that we waited, et cetera. So I just want to be, for the record, hear your opinion on that.
It's my understanding thus far, I've not had any other communications other than what was said tonight in open session. And Mr. Kuzanis did reach out to all of the candidates and provide them with the link. I know he provided it to me as well, and he's always very good at reminding of that, and has always been very good at making sure that everyone has access. So it seemed that the board, Co-President Pizzotti, went above and beyond what was required tonight to contact the candidate as well. Are my 3 minutes up?
Yeah.
And that I am sure that Dr. Hildreth and her staff are also working very hard to contact that other potential candidate. So there is no, I think I said this at the beginning of this evening, there's no legal criteria or way to make this selection tonight. It's at the board's discretion, and you set up a very open and transparent way of holding these interviews this evening. And so I am not concerned from a legal perspective over our inability to bring in that fifth candidate.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you stopping and asking that, President Wong, because I was actually thinking the same thing. Was, do we have any obligations that we haven't fulfilled, to try and make sure that the last person was able to answer the questions. So with that, I think we should be moving forward, and let's start facilitating the discussion portion. Did we want to do a straw poll first, or did we want to have a discussion about the answers and the strengths of each candidate?
Co-President Pizzotti, I have 5 pages of notes and a highlighter. And if I could have just a couple minutes to go through and just highlight everyone made this very hard for us. Yeah. And I really, really appreciate hearing it. We've been sitting for a long time. So just
you want to take a 5-minute recess?
Sure, just a minute to breathe real quick and then gather my thoughts and look through this would be really helpful if others agree. I'm happy to still be sitting here, but I might stand and
I agree. I think there were a lot of really deep questions. And so if we could take 5 minutes, again, according to Brown Act, keep all of our the board, keep our cameras on while we take the 5 minutes, take a stretch break, whatever we need to do. Other boards do that. Why don't we do that? Again, thank you to the interviewees. You are not obligated to keep your cameras on unless you want to stare us down as we talk about the answers, but you're not obligated to do that at this moment. So I will move that we take a short break, cameras on, and return at 7. Well, how about 7 minutes? 7:45 to make it just even quarter till.
That sounds good.
And board members, do not turn off your cameras. Co-President Pizzotti, it is 7:45 if you want to return.
Sorry, I was finishing up my notes. Okay. So now that we're all back, did we want to do a straw poll first, or did we want to speak on the pros of each candidate? What is the will of the board?
I believe at the top of the hour, we had committed to a straw poll to discuss the top two. But again, as Marie has pointed out, we can change at any time. We can change the process at any time. So I would, honestly, they are making it tough for us. Everybody had really, really solid answers. And so I'm like, and if it was a straw, I mean, it's like, they're all number one. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I would agree. And with that, I think let's do this. Let's start by selecting, who would our number one be, and we'll go to each board member. Who's your number one and number two, and then is that not what you have? I'm getting a crazy look.
No. So as explained, and the instructions are in our sheet. We don't have to follow them, but the straw poll is ranking 1 through 4, 1 being your number one choice, and then tallying accordingly. Marie, can you remind us, once we tally the straw poll, we have to verbally tell Dr. Hildreth? Like, I forgot, like I was trying to understand that piece of it, so.
Yeah, there are different ways to do it. Normally you would all be in the same room together and you would just pass your pieces of paper to Dr. Hildreth or one of her staff members, and they would do the tally for you all. And obviously this is open and in open session. Because that's not possible now, the easiest way to do it would be to give Dr. Hildreth your individual rankings, and she could then tell you if there was a majority. But because there are only 4 candidates, when we came up with this process, we envisioned maybe more candidates. I believe when Co-President Pizzotti spoke earlier, when he first applied, there were 8 or 9 different applicants. So tonight it's, selecting their top 2, 3, or 4 is going to kind of encompass the entire group. So the board could, note their top 2 as discussed at the top of this meeting, and see if you have any consensus around who those 2 people are.
So I guess on process, I was trying to say, like you said, normally we would just pass a paper and be somewhat anonymous, but that's not possible, right? So we'd have to actually say.
Yeah, no, and it wouldn't be necessarily be anonymous, because when Dr. Hildreth or whomever would say this is how it worked out, and the documents themselves are,
Right. So, but
record,
gotcha. And so voted this way. So I think I also like the point process where you can rank everybody in order, and then you add up, and when then we could actually see who the total points, right? So my understanding is 1 equals 4 points, 2 equals 3 points, so on and so forth. That seemed to be a really quantifiable way to see who, all of us on, averaged out, or like total points, who had the top 2 from a quantitative measure. But again, we don't have to follow what was written here.
Yeah.
But it makes sense from a mathematical standpoint for me, but.
Yeah, and when I was appointed, since there was 9 people, what they did was they actually they selected their top 3 candidates and just basically ranked their top 3, and the person that had the most was appointed. So whoever had the most points out of that was appointed. They didn't have necessarily a straw poll to say per se, but it was just rank your top 3. And so that's what it was based off of. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez, you were on the board at that time. Was there any discussions about how to go about selecting, either ranking all of them or ranking the
I
top
know,
three?
sure. I know that Marie is here, so I'll weigh in a little bit and then I'll defer to her to let her weigh in. So again, our bylaws leave this part of it open. We've followed our bylaws and law through this process, but at this point it's non-binding, as we've said. So we can do this ranking format. The other option was more of the straw poll, was the top, your top two. It's not necessarily a rank or point system. It's just who are your top two to guide the discussion. The last city council meeting, they did do that way, top two, and then they went top one. Elk Grove 2 nights ago did an appointment process, very similar to the whole process we've done tonight. They said, what are your top two, to guide their conversation without a rank. We can do either. The way it worked when we did the last appointment was trustees did give their top three. It was written on a board because we were in the same room. It's all transparent of who everyone says. We hand over paper, it was written on a board, and it wasn't necessarily that it was tallied and we went through the points, but we looked through the board to guide our discussion in that. So it's meant as a tool and a guide to help us as we make the decision. Okay, if Marie wants to weigh in.
The board may do it in whichever of these manners that it sees fit. The real the legal caveat at the end is there needs to be a formal vote. So if the four of you have the same person as number one, the mere fact that you all four have the same number one does not appoint that person. Somebody will need to make the motion and second it, and we'll need a majority vote.
Okay. I'm open to either saying our top two or just ranking all and assigning points. I put out the point system, made sense to me to see how it laid out, but again, open to whatever my colleagues prefer.
Okay.
I tend to be quantifiable that way, as you know.
You know what, Trustee Wong, if you want to do a 1 through 4, or President Wong, I'm sorry. President Wong, you want to do a 1 through 4, I'm fine with that as well. Because I have listed mine out in that way. So if everybody wants to take a minute, if that's the will of the board, is everybody okay with that? Ranking theirs 1 through 4?
Well, I might propose that we see what happens with the top two and see what that conversation looks like, and then we can move to the full points if you would like to. Maybe a thought.
Clerk Venegas, do you have any comments on that?
I do not. I'm okay with all of your guys' suggestions.
Okay.
All of them.
We're a big, massive indecision.
I mean, yeah.
I am ready whenever. I like the idea of the top two and then going to top to ranking. I think it's going to ultimately we're going to see the pattern. I think we're all very open, and I love that. But I do believe I'm okay with President Shaggy Wong. You said ranking. I'm okay with ranking if I have to make a decision.
Okay. We are a big ball of indecision.
Yeah, I mean, President Wong, do you feel strongly about this? But you
all know that I'm quantifiable. You all know that I'm quantifiable.
Yeah,
let's see how points everybody gets, and then we'll go from there, right?
Yeah, I don't think anybody feels strongly about which direction, and if you do, then let's go with that.
And again, it's non-binding. If the point's like, hey, how did that total point get, like the person who, whatever, right? Like, so it's non-binding, but it's at least a quantifiable number that we start with.
To help make the decision, I'll go with my top two. I'll push that forward, and then whatever the rest of the board decides.
Okay. You don't want to go with top 3 or top 4?
Apparently, somebody on the board does want to go with top 4.
They're all great.
We're not picking up what she's putting down, Clerk Venegas.
Go for it. If you want to start, go.
Go ahead.
Someone's got to do it. Oh, I don't want to start, but I will. It's not what I wanted.
We could send all of our, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but it does say in our policy, we could also send the message in and they can all be shared at the same time if you want to do it that way.
I'm okay.
That's an idea. Okay.
I'm okay with just now I'm just gonna say my top two and not explain, in fairness of not explaining the positives of my 3 and 4. If that
Yeah,
makes
no,
sense.
yeah, that's a straw poll. Yeah, it's just what
Yeah.
straw poll is just that. It's
My top-
non-binding.
My top 2 were Christy Barnes and Matthew Wilkins.
Okay.
My top 2 were Matthew Wilkins and Christy Barnes.
And my top 2 were Christy Barnes and Jose Garcia.
And my top 2 were Lucia Lopez and Christy Barnes.
We have a consistent.
Okay. So we do have someone that is consistent on all 4 of our straw polls. So do you want to, at this point, start a discussion about the pros of each individual of the, say, top 2?
I don't know if we landed on there. There's one consistent, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so it seems like when you talk about Christy Barnes, I would assume then she makes that of the 2 slots we want to choose left is Christy.
Yeah.
Have a full discussion is Christy Barnes.
Right.
And I don't know if then how do we go with that second person? And it seems like another person had 2 votes, but again, not binding, right? Matt Wilkins had 2 votes, Lucia had 1 vote, and Mr. Garcia had 1 vote. So
Okay.
again, non-binding, but it seems
Right.
to me at least Christy becomes
We'll
part
be
of
in
that.
the top 2.
Yeah.
Whoa.
If that is okay with the board. So I'm happy to at least kind of commit to at least Christie's in that top 2 conversation.
Well, I would concur with that. And I would also suggest that Matt Wilkins is in the top 2 as well, considering he was the only other person to get 2 votes. Unless others at this point would like to speak on the pros of that, because he received the top 2.
Yeah. And so Christy aside, again, with no bias, right? Just talking about the rest. Honestly, the people kept moving around for me, ranking order, right? Depending on their, I want to also value the kind of the deep roots of both Ms. Lopez and Mr. Garcia, the experience. I mean, we're talking about generations of West Sacramentans, right? Like just deep. And so it was a really kind of close, to be really direct with you, between all of the candidates. But that I understand that that's how, that I do acknowledge that, right? Matt brings together, to me, again, you guys know me, I'm consistent, like the policy analysis, the data analysis, that's what speaks to me. You all know that I'm consistent with that, and that's that makes a whole lot of sense for both, I should say, Christy and Matt, right? And especially during this time when we actually have to, we're making a lot of decisions, and there are a lot of feelings and a lot of things that are going on. Is that was why I was leaning towards at least those 2 candidates, right? Yeah. Without prejudice, just I want to acknowledge that there was just like in this moment in time where we are and the decisions we had, and that's why I landed with, if you want to start the discussion about, for me, why.
No, that's great. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much, because I think you said a lot of the things that I was kind of thinking as well. It's like Christy in this time for me, as a nurse practitioner and somebody who volunteers in the classroom, and has a pretty clear understanding of equity for us, really kind of rose to the, in this moment, sort of need for what we, what we are facing. However, I would say that Jose, Lucia, and Matt are all very, very qualified, and it was a balance of Jose and Lucia with their deep roots and history in the district and their commitment to volunteering. And then Matt with his policy and, educational background. I thought that was also very compelling. So at that point, it was, okay, if I'm going to select a number 2, I think my value is going to be as somebody who is not only an educator or has, experience with education, but also has volunteer experience in the community or at the school site level. So that was kind of what tipped the scale just over. I mean, like barely, because they're all 3 so good, and they can all be a value add to this board for sure. So those were just my two comments. I would just say that I'm so thrilled that everybody put themselves out there and really shared their story. So I do appreciate that.
Yes, I'm not, are we, so, I mean, I don't know, you had, your top 2 were both Christy and Mr. Garcia. So I'm just wondering, again, just open floor, right? Like, I think we're talking about that second person we got to talk to about a deeper discussion about. So again, flexible there, I don't want to kind of say just because one kind of had 2, I know I want to kind of acknowledge your 2 votes as well for a different person in that top 2 discussion. So open to hearing before jumping in that these are the 2, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you ready, Clerk Venegas, or I see you?
Oh, I spoke first, so I'm like,
Oh.
Again, I'm just this rhythm. So go ahead.
Okay, we have 2 products of Washington Unified School District, and that is pretty incredible. And, the work that's happening right now with our school site councils, our reopening plans, I mean, the heavy lifting that's not glamorous is happening by applicants here, candidates here that we rely on, and their voices are critical. And I want to acknowledge that. I think it's very important to that we are gifted really with incredible people here. And when you go and see the heavy lifting that's happening at school sites, that is important. Who knows the community deeply, who has invested their children to be in Washington Unified as well. So these are we have incredible folks. The last time we did this, not everyone who applied knew Washington Unified deeply like this. This time, every candidate knew Washington Unified deeply, and regardless, since we know that we can only have one person, we've got to make sure that we continue to have these voices to influence and impact our decision making and to help us get the voices out. It was clear to me in the speaking tonight. I heard it actually both from Jose and from Lucia in terms of feeling like, hey, why didn't we get that for our kid or for my neighbor's student? And that can't happen. We need to work on that. And it's important to hear that voice and to make sure that we know truly that we're capturing the inequities that are happening in the district. And by the way, Sly Park is happening virtually, not ideal, but we did pay for it to happen virtually this year for your 6th grader, Mr. Garcia. You don't have the enjoyment of going on the trip. I know it's special, but so that was really powerful for me. And of course, I know I'm talking about everyone here, but I do have to acknowledge the special education component knowledge there. That is important. We do need that knowledge in terms of on our with our SELPA and the work that we do in our district, and of course the LGBTQ perspective as well. So these are all voices that we need to continue to engage in. We have facility committees that are coming up and other pieces. So I just want us to look for ways to engage everyone that was here tonight. This is a different moment than if it was a year ago being in a pandemic. And so that is part of the piece that weighed for me in my decision making as well, that would have looked different if this was a year ago. So that's what I'm thinking. There I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clerk Venegas, do you have anything to add, or are you good?
Yes. I first want to acknowledge everybody. Those 5 minutes, those 7 minutes that we had to reflect, my list turned over. I'm thinking maybe 4 or 5 times. Like my notebook, I had to get a new sheet of paper. Just thinking in the present moment, as being as present as possible. Looking from the thinking aspect was thinking of like Trustee Kirby Gonzalez mentioned the fact that we are in this pandemic and there's a lot of assessing on the spot and moving forward and deciding, attempting to be empathetic and compassionate towards everybody, and making the best equitable decision. I do have to commend and thank Jose Garcia and Lucia Lopez. You guys serve on the PTC at Riverbank. I heard you guys both almost support each other during the interview process. I really love that.
That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the neighboring feel. And I do remind you all, representing Area 1, which is my neighborhood in a sense. I'm Area 2, but I've spoken loudly about ensuring that service comes before the political component of we are neighbors first. And you all, I believe I heard neighbor maybe about 3-4 different times, and I am a fan of that. I did love the support for each other, so I do thank you for serving, and now I know who I'm going to. Now having this conversation, who I'm committed to having a conversation after this, and connecting and building that relationship and making sure that voice is being heard. Like I said, not having a seat should not equal not having a voice. And I personally feel that the only reason I'm sitting here is because of educators like yourselves, and that is the train.
It's real. Keep talking.
Yeah. A teacher for 22 years. And let me just give that a round of applause. That is a beautiful thing. Inspiring and serving. I can tell your hearts are there. Matthew Wilkins, obviously the experience, the policy, the awareness, and just the knowledge that comes with all the information that you bring, I think would be great for Area 1. And of course, Christy Barnes, you kept mentioning about assessing the situation, being present, and when we talk about equity, I think overall a nurse, having the nursing background is it brings the every client, and every individual that comes in through your hands needs something different, and you need to assess, decide, and move forward. And I think that's why personally I felt that's where my decision leaned in having somebody in Area 1 that can bring that to the board. And overall, thank you all for stepping up and stepping in.
Have we leaned in? Have we landed on the top 2?
Yeah, I think we're quite clear.
Are we? Okay. I just want to make sure. I know that Clerk Venegas and I have similar, but I just want to make sure I honor that process before both you, President Pizzati, as well as you, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez. I don't want to move too fast and assume.
We're getting a comment. Is public comment allowed? I believe that time I just wanted
on this issue, we had public comment not on issues of the that were agendized.
Right.
That is correct. We probably should have actually opened up public comment at this moment after interviews. So if you would like.
I'm gonna allow Tiffany McFadden to make a public comment, and let me see if I can ask to unmute here. Okay, Asked to unmute. Yorgos, can you do that for some reason? Or maybe she is unmuted.
Okay.
Yes,
I
Tiffany,
think I'm
your
unmuted
microphone
now.
is turned on.
There you go.
Okay, thank you so much for allowing me to make a public comment. I just want to thank all 4 of the people who went through the interview process tonight. I've kind of been in your shoes before, you know, as you know, I ran for school board. So thank you for putting yourselves out there. It's clear that you all care very deeply about our district. And with no disrespect to any of the other candidates, I just want to say the one that stood out to me was Matthew Wilkins. And the reasons for that are that he has the special education background. He is a foster parent, was the only one who touched on foster youth, as well as the LGBTQ community, which are things that are not currently, the LGBTQ community and foster parents are not currently represented on our board. And I think that those are 2 very important groups of our students. And I know that I have in the past reached out to district staff to try to see what I can do, just even as a parent, about having some sort of task force or subcommittee to focus on LGBTQ youth. Kobe, I know that is something that you as well. So I just want to make sure, you know, I know that's something that is something that's important to both of us. So that was one of the things that really made Matthew stand out to me, is that is something that is a priority for him. And I think our students know that. I have kids in my life that I am close to that are he, some that are she, some that are they, them, some that are trans. And I just think that we really need to realize how many of our students are impacted by this and make sure that they're represented. So thank you so much for allowing me to comment.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. I appreciate it.
Building on that, I mean, if we talk about justice and I mean, lived experience, you all know this would be the first LGBTQIA person in 100 years. I mean, I feel like Washington Unified, we're always making history, right? We are intentional, we are intentionally inclusive. And I think that, thank you for raising that, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez. And so that's something that I know that that's a parent, but I also wanted to highlight, and they're both very qualified, right? Like qualified in terms of policy, but yes, absolutely. This, it would be tremendous, a tremendous historical kind of moment.
Agreed. So shall we move forward? We've already moved on our pros and cons. At this point, are we wanting to do additional questioning, or are we ready to take a final vote?
I have a question if the board is okay with me, and if we're going to move on to, you know, dismiss lean into the top 2. I do, if the board would indulge me, I do have a question that I think would be important, right? In terms
of the top 2 candidates?
Of the top 2 candidates.
Okay. Okay. Is everybody else okay with that?
I would prefer if the question is asked that it's asked of all.
All 4?
Is how I feel if we're only going to ask it of 2. Since if we had a discussion of 4, 3, that would be different. But since it's a 4-2 in terms of the numbers, maybe you can tell us what the question is.
The question is, in democracy, not everybody agrees. And it's the question then becomes for board dynamics when there are disagreements of value or otherwise between board members. How does one handle that? And I'm happy to have all 4 answer that question, but essentially that's the question. So in a democracy, we all have lived experiences that are different. So when we walk into the boardroom, I think that is what people understand, that people are passionate about things, but how do you deal with conflict when there are board members who state things who may not be aligned with your own personal beliefs? How do you get past that?
And Trustee Wong or President Wong, that is a question that was asked of me during my interview, and I think it's very valid and important. And I was going to ask, actually, if we do have a second round of questioning, that was the question that I think would have been very important to me.
Yeah. So hence the question is, I'm happy to ask for, or I thought we had actually said we were pretty leaned in on the top two already. And then that's why, because it's so close, that's an important question for me. But, you know, if we're not leaned in on the top two, then okay.
Does anybody have any objection to just asking this to the top two?
I believe Trustee Kirby Gonzalez did, but I don't know where Clerk Venegas is.
I'm okay with moving to the top two.
Okay. I think since we've had at least one person state that they would prefer it to go out to all four. I mean, yeah, we have leaned in to the top two. I don't know. I'm trying to wrestle with the idea of, is this one question going to change the mind of anybody else of how we've ranked them prior, to place others up above the person that the top two people that we've selected. So since they were all so close in my book, those three candidates were also close in my book. If you think it would help you sort out, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez, who you would potentially select above your first or second choice, then I don't see a problem with asking all four candidates, and maybe we just give a 1 minute answer period for that. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that kind of cuts it down the middle if we shorten the time frame. Okay. So
I think last time the closing statement, we may have started with Lucia, so the next cycle would be Ms. Christy Barnes, on all of our top two lists. So, and if candidates wouldn't mind turning on their cameras for this portion, we will begin again.
Co-President Wong, can you ask the question, because you kind of eloquently
so didn't type it out. Let me try to type it out real quick. Okay. The gist of it is, and you all can think about it, is just that, again, how do you deal with board dynamics when you may be on an opposite end of an opinion with another board member? How do you deal with conflict? Ms. Christy Barnes.
Okay, sorry. So I think, again, back to my hospice and palliative care background, I think I often have an opportunity to communicate with people that I don't necessarily agree with. So I think hearing them where they are is absolutely very important. And then recognizing what it is that they're saying, potentially, if it's appropriate, repeating it back sometimes is helpful. And, really just respectfully and tactfully hearing what they have to say. And if you need to continue to disagree, to present your perspective then as calmly and with support of your argument as possible.
Great, thank you, Christy. Mr. Jose Garcia.
Let me unmute myself here. Sorry about that. Well, just like Christy says, I think that it's important always to listen to everybody, to listen to everybody's points, but again, without placing judgment. And at the same time, I think when we're in a situation where you have 5 board members and I was watching one of the past board meetings when you guys were trying to decide the president or the president, right? I think for this year, and I was listening to all your points of view, and I think it's all about fairness. It's all about, like we said, going back again to equity. It's not about who hasn't done this or who hasn't filled this position or whatever it might be. I'm in the, I think from my point of view, I don't like taking sides. I don't like to, I'm not loyal to anybody. I think I'm more focused on what's best for the community and the kids in the schools. I'm focusing on that. I don't like to play politics. I'm not a political person. I teach politics. I teach government in class, but I think that I'm more to the middle. I think I would make decisions based on my gut and my morals and my values and my upbringing and what's right and what's wrong, what's right for the community as a whole. I don't.
I'm sorry, your minute's up.
Okay.
Sorry. Mr. Wilkins.
First and foremost, I would conduct myself professionally. I think it's always important to assume positive intent from the other person who I may have a disagreement. I think it's really essential to listen to the other sides of the rationale or other sides of the issue, and to really try and deeply understand that perspective so that I can build empathy and understanding. I think once I've done that, I really try and build on similarities between the two ideas so that we can really kind of hopefully come to some compromise and compromise on the things that, can be compromised on. And then if it is still, I'm unsure, then really making sure that we're collecting data to determine if the decision that was made was actually effective. And if it isn't effective, then revisiting that decision at a later date so that the initial concern can still be addressed at a later date with whether it's another board vote or another, way of approaching it.
Thank you. Ms. Lucia Lopez?
Sorry, I'm trying to get my husband off to work. I think just listening to everybody's point of views, taking the just time to put it, sorry, just trying to listen to everybody's views, listening to going to the data, also just thinking about what your community wants, what your parents want, maybe not what necessarily, like I said, it's not necessarily what we want, but we are still representing our families and our parents and our schools and our teachers. So just remembering that during those tough decisions. Thank you.
Thank you all of you again for staying on and popping back on.
Okay. Well, that was very interesting because that actually cemented one decision and then changed another for me, actually. So that was very helpful. So thank you very much for that, President Wong. I do appreciate that extra question.
So did you want to start with what changed for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And I want to say that the one thing that I heard from Christy was that she valued and respected everybody's opinion, and she often hears people's opinions that she doesn't necessarily agree with. But it's the value and respect, and she repeats the question back necessarily to try and find something there that people can agree on. I found that was good. I know when I answered the same question, to me, the points that really, I think, struck home with the board members at that time was everybody's perspective is valid. And whether or not you agree with each person, they have the right to that opinion. And you must respect that. And, I know at times things can get heated. I think this is kind of a time in which we're all going to be under a lot of pressure in some of the decisions that we make, and we may be very, very locked in on our decisions. So, with that, I did change my perspective on, what, Lucia said kind of hit home a little bit. And she said, listen to everybody's points of view and then listen to what the community wants for her, because she represents the community. And that does lend to what I was thinking. You don't necessarily have to agree with everybody. You do, however, have to respect everybody. And that was, something that I kind of got out of the commentary. I feel like that kind of, everybody was so close for the second choice for me, and that may have nudged her ahead. So I think that would have kind of changed my ranking to Christy 1 and maybe Lucia 2.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
No, that's okay. Anyone else? I haven't changed. Those are the Christy and Matt are still my top 2. We're just trying to get to top 2, right? I don't know this process right now. I'm I'm again just trying to get the top 2 right now, because I'm not trying to go deeper.
Make a nomination tonight. So we can't, unfortunately, we don't have 2 spots or 3 or 5, or we bring them all on if we had a big 7-person board. But we don't have to have consensus on 2.
Right. Are we ready to make a nomination at this point?
Yeah. I'm just trying to honor our process that we want to do top 2 and then do that. That's all I'm trying to do. Follow the process that we laid out. But again, if we want to change it, that again, nothing's set in stone. So there's a clear person on all of our top 2 lists. But again, I'm just trying to honor our process of top 2 and then.
Right. I'm ready to make a nomination at this point.
I think that our second choice is going to continue to be fluid, because there's no right second choice. Like, I think it all, and I know that's why I went back to my notes, because I know in the present moment, I'm such, there's such a connection with each and every single one individual. So I speak loudly and say, I will be personally looking to work with everybody that was on the screen tonight. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and from responsibility to this community in Area 1, Area 2. So I think, if I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that second is going to continue throughout the process if we continue to look for 2. So,
okay. Well, I appreciate that, Clerk Venegas. There's one clear person that is on everybody's list, and I think from if we were to rank them and put points by their name, that person would come out on top. At this point, I would be willing to move forward with a nomination if that is the will of the board. I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable at this point. And I'm not seeing any head shake.
Yeah.
So with that, I would move the nomination of Christy Barnes to the board.
I second that.
Good.
Okay.
She's one of your parents. An Elkhorn.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second, and I'm going to call the roll. Are we ready? Okay. We'll start with Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
Co-President Wong.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. welcome Christy to our board. I want to say thank you to everybody that has applied. You all were incredibly good candidates. My heart goes out to everybody and asks that you all please stay committed to participating and serving our kids, because we absolutely love and need all of our help in this time from the community. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I actually want to also give the floor to Christy if she wants to say anything. If she doesn't have to, but
thank you. I wasn't sure if I should turn on yet. I am so honored and humbled. I really appreciate this, and I look forward to working with each of you. I also just want to echo all of your comments about everyone who applied. I was so very impressed. It brings me to tears. I love this community so much. I also want to say to Matt that I want you to rest assured that I have the LGBTQ community at heart as well, and foster community as well. So please know that that's a shared passion, and I'm thankful for your application as well. And also to Jose and Lucia, I really am grateful that you're part of our community and that your involvement has been so thorough, so long. It's really great. So I love this community. I'm honored, I'm thankful, and yeah, thank you.
okay. I think that's Marie. We're done. We made the vote. We're going to move on to agenda item number G. Is there anything else we need to do legally? We've done it.
No, your obligation was to make the appointment, and then Ms. Barnes will need to take the oath of office, and that will be that.
Okay. So I'm going to move forward on the agenda to future board agenda, which is the installation of Board Trustee Area 1. Congratulations, Ms. Barnes. We were looking at February 1st as the potential date. So if you have a calendar, wanting to know if that works for you, because we need you to start work now. So that would be Monday.
Yes, that works for me.
So that we can start to loop you in and a number of things. So not that you can decide, I guess it's a board question. So let me just theoretically out there say that is the date that we're looking at. So anything else for the good of the order?
I would welcome. And I would just reiterate, I know that this is happening, that we have vacancies across the state in terms of, and school boards doing appointments. And so my understanding is that CSBA, that is who does our training for new school board members, that they are aware of that, and that should be on our radar as well to find. It's great training. I know Ms. Clerk Venegas did it, as we have, and also our dates that we set just for that I know Dr. Hildreth was looking at as well, that we make sure that our board governance, that we're all looped into that, since that's a paid for piece, and just make sure that we get connected with all those dates as
well. Okay, so if there's nothing else for the future board agenda items, it was made note that last night nobody voted to adjourn. You all just left. So I will change that tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will move that we adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, so I saw Clerk Venegas' mouth move as a second. So right. I have a movement from President Bizzatti, a second from Clerk Venegas, and we will do a roll call vote. Trustee Kirby-Gonzalez?
Aye.
President Bizzatti?
Aye.
Clerk Venegas?
Aye.
And I too vote aye, and we are now adjourned. Thank you again so much for all of your
thank you.
All your time.
Thank you, everyone.